I am Lauren Meltzer. I'm with the Foundation Fighting Blindness. I am the community manager for the Mid-Atlantic. So the communities that I cover are Baltimore, DC Metro, and then Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area, but we are across the country, so which I'll get to. Many of you came through the foundation, but in case you knew Chef Debra Erickson, I wanted to just briefly mention a little bit about the foundation so that you know who we are, and we can answer any questions as well. So a little background, the mission of the foundation is to drive sight-saving research that provides prevention, treatments, and cures for people affected by inherited retinal diseases like retinitis pigmentosa, macular degeneration, Usher's, Stargardt's, the entire spectrum of retinal degenerative diseases. We were founded in 1971, and since then we've raised over $954 million for research and public health education associated with our mission. We've launched over 45 clinical trials for potential treatments and grew to about 47 chapters now throughout the US. So we are very excited about that. I will send a follow-up email to this group as a thank you this week. I will include Davida, which I'll introduce you to momentarily. She was just speaking. Her information, as well as Chef Debra Erickson's. Um, if you have any questions on the foundation side of things, or if you want to be connected with your community manager near you, please let me know. I'm happy to do so as well. Um, but moving on to this evening, we're so glad to be partnering with Chef Debra Erickson of the Blind Kitchen to bring you this virtual event. It's her goal is to give you the practical tools, techniques, and strategies to confidently navigate the kitchen with vision loss. During her presentation, she will pause for questions at specific times. Please use the Zoom shortcuts that I emailed over to you to mute or unmute, to raise your hand during these times. While Chef Erickson is presenting, please remain muted. We will also help on the back end if needed. To start, as mentioned, I'd like to roll this over to Davida Lours. She is the DC chapter president at the foundation.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Lauren, and thank
Yeah.
you everybody for joining us this evening. And just a comment or two about logistics. On the assumption that there will be others besides me who can't navigate easily the chat and the raising the hand option, I'm working on JAWS, but I haven't quite learned how to navigate all that. We're going to give you the option to not have to take the stress out and not worry about the technology. Um, if you can use that, feel free. Edgar is here with us to monitor that, and respond and help. But if you can't, then the way to ask a question is going to be to state your first name and just wait to be acknowledged by Deborah. And hopefully, we won't have a lot of people talking all at one time, and then she will acknowledge that person, and then you can ask a question. We'd like to ask people to ask only one question just so that we can kind of cycle around and make sure everybody gets a chance. And then perhaps you could ask another question after that. So state your name, wait to be acknowledged, and then we'll go from there. And of course, if you can use the chat and raise hand, that's fine. Um, so how did tonight come about? In a fast nutshell, I am Davida Lours. I am the chapter founder for the Northern Virginia chapter. We grew, became DC Metro in 2020. And here I sit with retinitis pigmentosa, and my vision is diminishing. And I recently was actually thinking, how am I going to be navigating the different skill areas in my life as my vision changes? We all can embrace the different technologies to imagine to use computers and phones, etc. But I thought, what can I do to be better acquainted with my kitchen options? That is something that is important to me. And that's how I came up with the idea, oh, I should talk to Deborah. This is something she does. She's got a YouTube page and a newsletter. She'd be a great resource. And maybe besides just talking to me, we could open this up and create a program. So that's the background. And with that said, Deborah, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lauren and Davida. And I also want to introduce Edgar. He's going to be the one kind of helping to monitor hands and things like that, and to give me verbal cues when I miss them visually, because I'm sure to do that. But if you have gone to the website or the YouTube channel and have ever watched any of the Blind Kitchen videos, he is the one that did the dancing cupcakes that jump into the muffin pans to form the Braille letters TBK. So he won an award for that too from ACB for audio description projects. So big thank you to
Well,
Edgar for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I just want to be brief, so everyone. I mean, I'll when I'll be monitoring any of your questions. So when that happens, I'll let Deborah know, and I think we'll move through that. So I'll be in the background, just making sure that everything is moving smoothly. So, but Deborah's a great speaker, and they have a lot of information. So take it away.
Thank you, Edgar. I'll write you a check later. Just kidding. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for your curiosity about the Blind Kitchen. I'll start out talking about a little bit about my credentials so that you'll know if it's worth you spending time in here with me. I am blind. I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I was the only blind student in culinary school. So when I was there, I had to learn to solve a lot of problems, and that's how the Blind Kitchen came to be, was my need to figure out how to be able to compete with the other students when I couldn't see. And it was quite interesting. At some point, if you want to reach out, we can certainly talk. So what I have found, so the Blind Kitchen is an online resource only. We have adaptive cooking tools, and we have strategies and tips for people with vision loss who want to cook safely and confidently and independently in their own kitchens. And it can be done. I can't do everything that a sighted person can do, but I can do 99% of it if I have the right tools, and sometimes it's just the right information. So I'm going to go ahead and start and open this up with my idea of how I can frame the information I'm about to give you in an organized way. But I don't want to be the person to be talking all night. I really don't. I love questions because our cooking is as individual as every person that's in this group tonight. Some like to bake, some like to be on the stovetop, some like to use food processor, some like to cut. I want to make sure that whatever is discussed in this group goes with where the group wants it to go. So one thing I have found in my work in the Blind Kitchen is that, and with students, I was also a teacher at the Oregon Commission for the Blind. I taught meal prep to legally blind adults of Oregon, is that fears, there are four fears generally around cooking with vision loss. The first two are pretty obvious, burning yourself and cutting yourself, and those are real, and you have to pay attention to them. But there are ways to manage those. And as I often told my students, if you're standing in front of a hot stove and your heart isn't beating and your adrenaline isn't going, you're not going to survive long on this planet, because that's your body telling you that you are in a dangerous situation right now or potentially harmful. But if you have the tools and the knowledge, you can say, oh, I can overcome this. I know exactly what to do. And that's the mission of the Blind Kitchen. So cutting yourself, burning yourself. The other fear falls under embarrassing yourself. Like, am I going to appear to be messy, disorganized, clumsy? Those are real fears too, and there are ways to master these things so you will look elegant and you will look proud and confident as into cooking, that because you now have more information. The fourth fear, or the other fear related to embarrassment, is presentation. If I'm handing you a plate of food that I prepared for you, and you know how I can't see it, but you can, there's definitely fear was in the back of my head. Does it look awful? Is it falling off the plate? Are things overlapping? But there are techniques and tools to help you to be confident that you are giving, let's say you're preparing 4 plates for family or friends, that the plates will look the same and they will be attractive. So that fear of embarrassment is another thing that can be mastered. And the last fear is fear of making your friends or family sick by undercooking the food. So things such as turkey or chicken, poultry, they have to be cooked to 165 degrees to be safe to consume. And often in recipes, they will say, cook it until the juices run clear, or cook it till it's no longer pink when you cut it a little into it with a knife. And if you don't have access to that information, that is not very helpful. So I'll start with that one. The tool that can help you to know if your chicken is done, your poultry is done, even something like baked potatoes. Sometimes, especially if they're big ones, they can be very hard to know. Well, the talking thermometer with it's got a probe that pulls out of the handle and you press, it's got and this is all on the website with audio described videos or information so that you know how to use it. You'll just press the button. In this case, it's at 9 o'clock, and it will speak the temperature to which the tip of your probe is at. So if your chicken temps at 180, you're good. If it temps at 170, you're not good. You're going to need to cook it longer. And then you just retemp it, give it a couple more minutes, and then retemp it. But it works in other ways too. It was interesting tonight. I was baking baked potatoes in my air fryer, which I love. And actually, your baked potato is done if the probe inserted the center is 207 degrees. Sometimes that's hard to tell because it cooks from the outside in, so the inside's going to be the last to cook. And if your fork isn't really deep enough to get it and detect it, so you can use your talking thermometer for that. So that is one tool that I think all blind people should and visually impaired people should have. And the other reason is if you are relying on your eyes, and with retinitis pigmentosa, my vision went slowly, and eye strain is exhausting. So if there's another way to do it, do it. And so if I'm straining to see, it does have a large LED display, but if I'm getting my face close enough to be able to see it, that means my nose is near the food, my mouth, my hair. It's really kind of, and plus your face is pretty close to food that might spatter. So using the talking thermometer, it allows you to stand tall, find where the thickest part of the meat is, closest to the bone. And I can give you tips on how you can do that better if you can't see. But then you can stand tall, press the speak button, and you'll get the information without all that vision strain and without bending over real close. That's not a good look for a cook. And we want you to all look good as cooks, but you can do it any way you want. So in terms of fear of cutting yourself, we have one tool in the blind kitchen that is a must. And I actually learned about this when I did a work experience in a commercial kitchen where the insurance company of that kitchen required all the cooks to wear cut gloves when they were cutting. They had to. So it wasn't because I was coming in as a blind employee and I would be the only one wearing them. Everybody had to wear them. And what they do is they are relatively thin and stretchy. You can't read Braille through them, but they are not bulky at all. And they're made of polyethylene threads. And I can literally hold my palm up so that the palm is facing the ceiling and my hand is outstretched in front of me and take a sharp knife and run it back and forth across the glove many times. It can't cut through it. Can I feel the pressure? Absolutely. and I can also feel the movement as I'm sliding the knife back and forth, but it can't cut through the glove. So that is a game changer. And you're always going to want to wear that cut glove on the hand that's holding the food. And I have pretty good knife skills from culinary school. You had to, and I didn't use a cut glove in culinary school, so that forced me to really get my knife skills up. And I did never cut myself, but I just went very slowly until I was able to go quicker. So it's a muscle memory thing, just like a keyboard, just like your iPhone. You just have to keep practicing and practicing until you get it. But the one place I would always wear a cut glove is when I'm grating food. So box graters are wonderful tools, but they are weird. They have four sides that are slanted, and each side has a different type and number of blades. And I don't know of any cooks, regardless of their vision level, who haven't left knuckle skin in grating potatoes or cheese or carrots. It just is hard to judge when your fingers are going to come in contact with those blades. And so when I'm wearing this glove, if I'm grating and I'm grating, and I think I'm doing okay, I know where I'm at in space, and all of a sudden I feel pressure on the hand holding the food and it's wearing the glove, I'm just going to stop. And my skin will not end up in the mixture. The other place this comes in is, so if I'm cutting a carrot, let's say I'm cutting a carrot on my work tray, and I've got the glove on and I'm doing my slice, cutting it into coins, slice, 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 I'm moving my hand down. If I all of a sudden feel pressure on that hand that's holding that carrot, I'm just going to stop. If I didn't expect to feel it, it's like, oh, something's wrong. And I stop. If I had not been wearing the glove, and that blade had come in contact with my finger or my thumb, whatever was offended, by the time my brain gets that message that, oops, you need to stop, it's too late. I've already cut myself. So that cut glove is a really good tool, and I've got a couple other places I use it for minor heat protection. And if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that. So that is one tool in the blind kitchen that definitely is one that I think every new cook or any cook that is having reservations about cutting, until you can get comfortable with cutting without a cut glove, or just always use a cut glove. They last forever, not forever. They do eventually, like your t-shirts, stretch out and get a little loose. But we, at the Commission for the Blind, we had 3 teachers teaching meal prep, and we went through hundreds of them and put them in the washer and the dryer, and they really last a long time. So that's a really good tool for cutting. So let's talk about heat for a second here. So heat, we have something called heat gloves, and they're very blind friendly. You may know of them as Of gloves. I think they were sold in the 80s, but they are so expensive. And there are a lot of knockoff brands that are good. And we've chosen the one that we think is the best for your money in the blind kitchen. And what they are is they are gloves in the literal sense, in that they have 4 finger cavities that are separate, not in the same one. Everybody's got its own, and also the thumb. And so they have 2 layers of cotton, whereas mostly if you're using a quilted hot pad, which is what I grew up using, or a quilted mitt where you're 4 fingers in one cavity, those are excellent protection against heat. They're going to do the job for you. But where the heat gloves excel is, number one, it's got 2 layers of cotton. That is not enough to protect you against heat in most situations. But what does is they have silicone designs on the front and the back of them. So they're ambidextrous. You can put them on in any hand, but you got to make sure the thumb goes in the thumb cavity. And what that does is that silicone, because you can make cookies in silicone. They use silicone mats for kind of as parchment paper. But what this also does, it allows you more flexibility with your fingers, because you can spread them out and change your grip on the pan, adjust, which Quilted gloves won't let you do that, and the quilted mitts won't let you do that. But the silicone, if your pan is clean, even though it's hot, unless it's oily on the outside, and most of us don't cook with oil on the outside of our pans, we try to keep it inside it. It actually provides non-skid properties. It helps it stick. Silicone has that property by itself. So again, not made for blind and visually impaired cooks, but extremely helpful. Now let's talk about the fears of embarrassment. So the tool in my kitchen that I could probably not do without is the work trays. And what they are is they are general cafeteria trays made of very sturdy plastic. You've seen them in schools, in hospitals, in jails. I mean, they're virtually indestructible. So, and they have that little edge on the outside for, so that you can carry your fast food from the lunch counter to your table or whatever. I use those for so many reasons. Number one is I use them for a cutting board because let's say I'm going back to those carrots and one rolls across the floor, it goes across the table and down. It's going to be embarrassing because I won't be able to find it. If I'm cutting those same carrots or grating them on my work tray, should that carrot coin that I just cut try to roll away, big chance that it's going to stay in the work tray because it'll hit the edge and it's not going to be rolling fast enough to go off the off ramp there. The other place these work trays work really well is in containing spills, because when I was able to see and I used to cook, I was clumsy and I didn't know I didn't have peripheral vision at the time. So I didn't know I might knock over a cup of oil and now it's going to run across my counter and now it's going to go down the front of my cabinets and now it's going to go on the floor. And I've got to stop and clean that up. And it's no fun. But if I happen to spill something and I spill it onto the work tray, chances are the work tray will contain it. Most spills, whether it's dry or wet. And also, there's even a chance, especially if you're using something expensive like vanilla and you accidentally spill it, that you can actually recover it by using a funnel and tipping the tray and putting it back into the bottle from which it came. So those are fears of looking messy, and you don't have to look messy. That helps you. It also helps us stay organized. If I'm making cookies and I've got my butter softened and I've got my sugar. And so I cream the sugar and the butter. And then I go to the refrigerator to get the 2 eggs I need. And there's no eggs. Maybe my husband used the last ones, and I don't know. I can't just jump in the car and go get it. So that will take the wind out of your sails really quickly. But if I take out all of the ingredients I need, the chocolate chips, the vanilla, the sugar, the brown sugar, the flour, baking powder, baking soda, whatever I need for that recipe, I put it on that tray to the right of my work tray, somewhere that it's not, I've still got my work tray. That's where I'm going to do my mixing and measuring and stuff like that, is on the work tray in front of me. But when I do use those 2 eggs, I am going to put the carton away. If I do use the brown sugar, I measure it, I use it, I'm going to put the brown sugar away. So there again, you're going to have a lot more organization. You're going to know where those ingredients are within reason, because things have a way of moving around the kitchen, and that will help keep them in place. So the work trays are a real good thing for keeping you organized. And if we're talking about, let's say you're seasoning chicken, I've got a couple of things here. Let's say you're seasoning chicken breasts and you've got them on your work tray and you've seasoned them, and now your fingers are messy. If I go and I have to grope along the counter to find my sink, make sure the faucet is over the sink, because sometimes it can turn all the way to the back. Some of you know what I mean. So I'm going to pull that forward. I'm going to turn on the water controls and gonna grab the bottle of soap or pump the hand dispenser and wash my hands, and that's all well and good. But the problem is now I've got to go back and disinfect those areas because at room temperature, the eggs and the chicken, raw chicken, contain potential bacteria that multiplies exponentially at room temperature. And so if it's just a little smear on a finger control, it's going to hit room temperature very quickly. So what I do to avoid that, and this is the other thing I do before I start cooking every time, is I run a couple of inches of soapy water in one of my sinks. The reason I do this is because, so let's say I've got that chicken and I've just done it and now my hands are messy. I can just use the back of my hands to run along the counter to find the sink, and now I can just plunge my fingers into that soapy water, and I haven't heard anything. I don't have to disinfect. I'm done. Now I can turn on the water faucet and I can rinse my hands with warm water. So, and the reason I only run a couple of inches is because as a cook with vision loss, I'm much slower, and I'm not apologizing for it. I just am. And so the water's going to start to get cold over time. I mean, that's what water does. So if that happens, if I plunge my hand, I say, "Oh, this is getting pretty cold, kind of gross," then I can run hot water again, run a couple more inches in it. It'll bring up the temperature of the water to be more pleasant, and it'll revive the suds. The other place that comes in handy is, let's say I measured out the brown sugar and the white sugar and the flour, and I'm done with that measuring cup now. I can go put it in that sink of sudsy water, and I've already started my cleanup. So that's another way to not appear organized and clean. So I think I'm ready to. I've talked a lot, so I think I'm ready to open the floor to questions.
Okay.
Question on the,
Oh, good.
sorry.
Go ahead, Edgar.
Okay. For the work, two questions on the work tray. One of them is, do you need a cutting board on top of it, or do you cut directly into the work tray?
Good question. I cut directly into the work tray. I have never had a knife go through it, no matter what I'm doing. Some people have a problem with that, and I get it, and they want to use the wooden ones, but the wooden ones are porous. You just have different problems with them. But those are our workhorse at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, and we wash them many, many, many times because we use them so often. So you can get your own from your source, but if you get them from the Blind
Never
Kitchen,
mind.
I'm here. You want anything?
No, it's mostly.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So if
Yes.
you get them from the Blind Kitchen, we're going to send you a dark one and a light one. That way, if you still have contrast available to you, you can use that contrast. So if I'm cutting a white onion, I'm not going to do it on the light colored board. I'll do it on the dark colored board, and then I can use that contrast. Same thing if I'm cutting a green pepper and I'll put it on the light colored tray because that's going to be a darker object that will help it to cut. So the other thing I didn't mention I want to is that every tool in the Blind Kitchen comes individually wrapped in its own resealable package, and there's a label on every package marked in large print and braille. And so everyone has access to it. So if you forget what I said about the work trays, if you go to the website, you'll now know what it's called. And you go to the website, and there's a audio described video that tells you what the tools are, what they do, why they are so low vision and blind friendly, and how to use and care for them. So you're not going to get those from your bigger box stores and stuff like that. And it's every item in the Blind Kitchen, every strategy, because not everything's about a tool, just like the kitchen sink, fill in the sink. I didn't sell you anything there. I just gave you information that's very helpful for blind people. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess the other thing in terms of, and you kind of mentioned this, in terms of kind of when you're cutting into the work tray, does it I guess hurt the work tray at all, or is it just really that tough that it doesn't the knife doesn't seem to affect it.
No, it does affect it. They get scarred. They get
Okay, they
scarred that
do.
you'll rub it. So it comes textured anyway. I don't want the smoothness. I want something to help me keep the food I'm cutting in place. So it does scar, but like I said, we've never had one go through it.
Okay,
This is
thank you.
Davita. I'm going to do a follow-up tray question. What is the impact? So I tend to use the Cutco cutting trays. So they're elevated and they're white, and I have a black counter, so I've got a little height and good contrast. And they protect my knives. So how does these trays, how do the knives wear using them?
So I'm not familiar with the one you're using. They will dull your knives. All knives dull over time, and maybe the surface you're using may be more kind to the knives.
Mhm.
But wooden ones also, they're going to dull it. So you just need to sharpen them occasionally, because a sharp knife is much safer than a dull knife. Because if I'm using a dull knife to try and cut that carrot, and I'm going to have to push harder. And so if it does hit my finger or my thumb, it's going to be much more severe than if I had a knife that was cutting through smoothly. So we
So
do.
how does somebody know if a knife is dull?
Oh, it just gets harder to use. It
Oh,
just gets
okay.
harder to use. Yeah. So the other thing you can do is, if you feel comfortable, you can hold the knife in one hand by the handle, and then with the other hand, very carefully touch your fingers to the blade, like slide them up and down, and you'll be able to feel where the steel is coming away. And that means your knife is dull. So you'll be able to feel, or it'll be like zigzag a little bit when it's supposed to be very straight and very clean. The edges, they will feel different. So we
Okay.
do have a knife sharpener in the blind kitchen. It kind of resembles a woman's high heel shoe, but it's very safe. And when we send that, we also send a cut glove as part of that, because it's got 3 or 4 grooves in it. The first one is going to get rid of those burrs I told you about. The second one is going to help to straighten that, to make sure that it's angled, because that's how knives cut. They have to be angled to a point, and that is what makes them good. And then the other one is a polisher, so it just finishes it off. So it only takes, I would say, about 4 minutes to sharpen a knife. And you can get a professional grade one. You can take them to someone to have them done. But the tool we sell, that's what I use in my own kitchen. It works pretty darn good.
Um, can I make one product recommendation and ask a question?
Sure.
Something that I got last year, it was off of Amazon, are measuring beakers. They stack together, but they'll do anything from about half a cup down to a quarter of a teaspoon. And I found I had too difficult a time using traditional measuring spoons, and everything would, vanilla would just run overflow. So here having the beakers was a big help for me to sort of contain the product, contain the mess.
Good to
My
know.
question is, what is your thought about talking scales? I have a traditional scale that I weigh everything out on now, but I only have slight vision left in one eye, and it's getting difficult to read it. But I've seen on some blind catalog websites talking scales. I didn't know whether the delay would be so slow that if you're pouring a liquid into a bowl on a scale, by the time it told you what it was, you were past it or not.
Yeah, well, there are talking scales, and I'm a big fan. And some people who bake rely solely on weight instead of volume. And we have one in the blind kitchen. There's different models. Ours only has 2 buttons, so we chose it for its simplicity. I don't need all this other fancy stuff. I just need to know when I have a quarter pound of ground beef on the scale. So yeah, we definitely have that in the blind kitchen. And I want to also share with you a measuring thing. You mentioned vanilla. So vanilla is very expensive. And so we have we have measuring cups and measuring spoons. Further than that, there are dry measure cups and dry measure spoons, and those are going to be very much like the ones you probably have in your kitchen already. They're made of stainless steel. The handle runs parallel to the counter, and you just scoop and level it off with your finger or a butter knife as you want to. And that's fine for the dry ingredients and the dry spoons. What makes them so accessible? There's going to be two things. So on all of our cups and spoons, part of the stainless steel handle, these are not bump dots, these are not tactile paint, they are part of the steel handle. And you don't need to read Braille, you just need to be able to count. So the 1/4 cup and 1/4 teaspoon of any of the sets is going to have 4 dots. They're prominent, they're evenly spaced, they're all the same height. So all you have to do is you count 4, you're holding a 1/4 teaspoon or a 1/4 cup. If you count 2, that's 1/2 because the 2 is on the bottom. So you've got a 1/2 cup or a 1/2 teaspoon. Now, so that's true of all of the measuring cups and spoons. You just have to be able to count those dots with your fingertips to use them. With the wet measuring, it's very difficult to measure like a level teaspoon of vanilla, let's say. Because the way I used to do it is I'd hold the spoon in one hand, have that little vanilla bottle, $8 for 2 ounces, thank you very much. And then I would pour a little bit, put the bottle down, check with my finger. Nope, I don't think it's full yet. Do it again, touch, check. There's really no way to really know, and you don't know if it's full to the top until it overflows. So that's not a good plan. So what we did in the Blind Kitchen is we bent the handles upwards on the wet measure cups and the wet measure spoons. So now they resemble ladles. And how do we transfer liquid efficiently? If I'm serving my family soup, I'm going to use a ladle because I can push it in, it can get the amount I need and pull it straight up. And if I don't hear anything drip, I know I only need one transfer to a bowl for that. If I were using a flat spoon with the handle not bent up, that would be a lot of spooning. So back to the vanilla. So if I need a teaspoon of vanilla for my recipe, first of all, the wet measure spoons come with a small spouted pitcher, probably very similar to your beakers because they do have a spout on them to help direct liquid back. But we also send a special funnel, a special size with the wet measure spoons. So if I'm measuring that vanilla, instead of doing the touch thing, I'm going to put the teaspoon straight up in the cup. Because it's only about 1 inch around, that spoon can't fall down. And I have always said, if they were taking our vision, they should have given us an extra hand because I never have enough hands. So you'll see some of the themes of the Blind Kitchen are being able to free up a hand to see for you and the other hand to do your work for you. So now I've got that teaspoon. There was only 1 bump on it, so I know it was a teaspoon. If there were no bumps, that would be the tablespoon. So it has a bump on it. I've got it setting there. Now I'm going to take the vanilla. I'm going to take the lid off and put it down very thoughtfully so I know where to get it when I need it on the work tray. And I'm doing this all over a work tray. And I dump the vanilla into the spouted pitcher. I don't want to overflow the pitcher, but I want that spoon cavity to be completely under the liquid I'm measuring. So that way, I'm going to pull my target bowl where I want that to go, the teaspoon, into near as I can so I don't have to travel far. And I'm going to lift straight up. And if I don't hear anything drip out, I know it's a level teaspoon because it was just under liquid all the way. So now I empty the spoonful into my recipe. I put the measuring spoon in that sink of soapy water so it can start cleaning. But now I've still got to deal with the overflow that's in that little cup. So that's why we send the funnel. So now I'm going to put the funnel in that little the mouth of the bottle of a 2 ounce is about as big as your pinky. It's going to be long and slow, and you might mess up trying to direct it in through the little spout. So you put the funnel in, instead of a pinky size opening, now you've got a little more than 3 inches. And so it goes really quickly and really easy. So I know I haven't wasted a drop. I put the lid back on the bottle, and I know for sure that I got the correct measurement that I wanted into that. So those are unique to the Blind Kitchen. You can't get them anywhere else. They're pretty amazing tools, and certainly one of our best sellers.
And Deborah, I just want to add that if you want more information, you can go to the website, theblindkitchen.com, and we have a video that will teach you and explain a little bit further what Deborah just described. So I highly encourage to visit there. There's a lot of resources that are very helpful for everyone. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you, Edgar. So that is and I'm glad you said that, Edgar. So the other thing, so if you order that, you get excited about tonight, and then you order it, and it comes in the mail, you're like, I don't remember what we're doing with all this stuff. Why are these things in here together? So you'll have the name of it, wet measure spoons, pitcher, and funnel, and then you can go to the website and get all the information and more that I just gave you. Okay.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deborah, do you want to move on to your next section?
I think
I don't know if there are any other questions.
Edgar?
I don't think anyone has raised their hand, so I think we can move on to your next.
Okay. So let's talk. So we have, I'll talk about the best sellers. This is one of my favorite tools. It's called an auto measure spout. And it is a spout that you put in the top of a bottle, just like any other spout. But I mean, and bottles come in different sizes, so we can talk about the size of it later. But it has to fit snugly into the opening of your bottle, and it dispenses exactly 1 tablespoon of liquid into your pan or your dish. So let's say I'm using olive oil. I need 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to have my pan on the stove. I'm going to reach over, grab that bottle that has the auto measure spout, turn it upside down over the pan or the bowl where I want the liquid to go, and I'll hear it dispensing, and then it'll stop automatically, even if I still hold it upside down. If I need that 2nd tablespoon, I have to put the bottle upright again to let it reset. I don't know how it works. I know it's got ball bearings, but it does work. And then I tip it upside down again, and again I'll hear it dribble, dribble, dribble into the pan or the bowl. And then now I know I have 2 tablespoons of liquid, and that is what I wanted. So here's another tip for you. So olive oil is quite expensive. Vegetable oil is less expensive. So some dishes, you want the flavor of the expensive olive oil to be part of it, but other dishes, like if you're searing a steak, that's not the olive oil taste is not going to survive that in any meaningful way. So I'm going to just use vegetable oil for that. So I have 2 identical bottles. I actually use half wine bottles because they fit the spout perfectly. And around the way I can tell them apart is around the neck of one of the bottles, I put a rubber band. So now they aren't exactly alike. Now one of the necks has a rubber band. And the way I came up with that, you have to assign meaning to your things. So I thought, well, rich people wear rings. It's expensive, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, or whatever. So I know when I reach over there, I'm going to be looking for the one with the ring on it. And I'll be able to differentiate between the two. So some of the tips in the Blind Kitchen are just like that. Like, how can you tell the difference between 2 bottles or, let's say, 2 cans? Let's say you have a can of cream of mushroom soup and a can of cream of chicken soup, and you get it home from the store. You use your AI or your husband's eyes or whatever you got going on. And I'm going to put a rubber band around the cream of mushroom because mushroom has an R in it, and that's how I'm going to remember that. Chicken, cream of chicken, cream has the word, but chicken doesn't have it. So just by my fingertips, I'm going to be able to know which can is which, even if it's 6 months later. So we can talk about other labeling techniques and things, but I want to tell you about I don't sell just pots and pans. If it's not adaptive, I don't sell it for vision loss. So one of them I have a pan called a locking lid pan, and it comes in 2 different sizes depending on what size would fit your needs. But I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if I'm cooking pasta or I'm cooking potatoes, like for mashed potatoes or pasta, by default, that pan is going to be very heavy. And I'm going to, because of the water and the food, and it's going to be hot when I go to drain it. So I can put my strainer in the sink. But even then, if I can't see it once I come around with the pan from the stove, it's going to be an educated guess at best as to where that colander is. And hopefully I won't accidentally tip it over when I'm doing the pour. This lid has drain holes actually in the lid that come down. It has about like an inch circle in the top of it. So first of all, I'm going to put the lid on the pan, and the outside handles of the pan have these little dials. And if you get one, you'll be able to tell quite easily that when those dials twist, they actually cover part of the lid of the pan, and they hold firmly. I could now grab that hot potato or a hot pan of potatoes and lift straight up on the lid, and it will come up in the air, even though that's very heavy. But that's not how I'm going to use it. So when I check the potatoes are fork tender, the pasta's al dente the way I want to. Now I don't need a strainer. I'm just going to go over to the sink. I'm going to pour with the pan facing away from me so the steam doesn't come up in my face. The bottom of the pan will protect me, and it will drain all of that liquid, and the lid will stay on the pan, trapping all the food in. That's also good for like browning meat. If you want to brown meat and get rid of a lot of the grease, that's a good way to do it, because there's 2 different sizes of hole, depending on how you arrange the lid, bigger ones and smaller ones. So you can adjust for the size of food you have in the pan. So that's called the locking lid pan, and I am just a huge fan of those. And they're especially good if you're teaching children with vision loss how to cook. That's a nice way where you as a teacher or a parent can feel comfortable knowing that lid is not going to come off. I mean, they still need to be careful. The pan is hot and there's hot water coming out. But it's much better than just blindly dumping a big old pot as best as you can into a sink. So the other pan we have that I really like, this one is for baking, and it's called the baking grid pan. And it is a 9x13 pan that you'd bake a cake in, or brownies, or stuffing. I've done so many different things in them, but the bottom line is it cooks and cuts at the same time, because it is very hard to cut a straight line for 13 inches when you can't see and you're trying to cut a cake into equal portions. It has a non-stick metal grid that fits beautifully inside the pan. And so I'm going to bake. I'll put the batter in the pan first, then I'll drop the grid in, and then I'll bake it, and I'll let it set so it doesn't crumble right away or whatever. And you can do meatloaf squares in this. You can do so many different things. But then when I go and lift up the grid, the pieces are all ready. There's 18 pieces, all exactly the same size. So that provides for a more attractive presentation. So that's another, and both are dishwasher safe and oven safe.
Does anyone have any questions about what Debra just talked?
Sarah?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Regarding like the pots and pans, I have a flat electric stove, and I am having my vision, like I'm losing more vision now again, and I'm having a lot of trouble centering pots and pans. I'm wondering if you have any tips.
I do. This is one of the most, you aren't alone. Sarah. There are a lot of people that have this problem. And it is scary because you can't touch the burner to find out where it's at. You can touch it at the beginning, you can hover your hand over it, but if you accidentally nudge it, how are
Yep.
you going to know? That's where the problems start. So the information I'm going to talk about right now applies to any stovetop, gas top, glass, the electric coil, or the glass top, or gas. So what you're going to do, the secret to this is that you can touch the top of a very hot pan, a clean pan that has hot food in it for just a second, tap it, and pull your finger away. And your finger will cool immediately. You can't touch hot food or hot water because the water is going to come back with your hand and continue to burn until it air cools. But your fingertip, you can do it every time. So the secret is, and this is what I do most of the time at my stovetop, is I am touching the top of the pan. Maybe at 2 o'clock, maybe at 4 o'clock, maybe at 7 o'clock, maybe at 11 o'clock, just, going around the pan, touching it. And if it's equally hot everywhere I tap it, then I know the heat source is trapped underneath the pan. If I've accidentally nudged it and I don't know it, I have no idea. I'm going to continue to touch and touch and touch. And now all of a sudden at 10 o'clock, it's super hot. And the other ones aren't that hot, but I can tell because I tapped it with my finger. Didn't get burnt, just tapped it to get the information. What that tells me is the heat is climbing the side of the pan at 10 o'clock. And now I need to gently nudge it towards where the heat is felt. And so then I'm going to give it another minute or so. Then I'm going to check again. And oops, it's still a little bit hotter. Not as bad, but a little bit too hot. And then I'm going to nudge it a second time until I get back to that stable position where all the top is evenly hot all the way around. I have a audio described video telling all of this on the website if you want to look for it. It's just called, again, I didn't just sell you a tool. It's a technique to be able to cook safely.
And
There's also, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, Deborah. So Sarah, I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video on the chat.
Okay.
So you'll be able to go there, and then you'll see Deborah explains a little bit as well how big the pot is. So you want to talk about that, Deborah, a little bit, the sizes?
Yeah. So if you need to choose the right pan for the right burner. If I have a little saucepan and I put it on my big burner, that's going to be disastrous for the handle and everything like that. So I actually, once and there's a way to know, what I used were cardboard cake stands, just like little circle pizza box. When you get pizza, it's got that round circle of cardboard.
Yeah.
And if that round circle, I have it for the sizes of the burners on my stove, so I know which one is which. So if I want to use the front right burner, and I'm not sure if my pan is big enough, I'm going to get that piece of cardboard, that circle, and check and see if it can fit all the way around underneath that pan before I even dirty it. And then I'll know I've chosen the right burner. Takes the guesswork out of it. But you've got to do a little bit of advanced prep to have those nearby if you don't know, until you learn which of your pans belongs on which burner.
Okay.
Thanks, Edgar.
Deborah, this is Davida. I have a flat cooktop, and what I've started doing, as I can't see the red heated area, is the pan is on the cooktop on where I think it needs to be. And I take both of my hands together and hold it up and move them around the edges of the pan. And I have found that I can feel where heat is and where heat isn't. And if I have the pan correctly on the burner, then I'm good. So for right now, that's my only strategy to make sure that I've got the pan. And it's my own cooktop, so I'm familiar. So I know by definition when I pull a pan out if it's going to be the right one or not. but it doesn't mean that I have it on the burner correctly. So that's my only way of checking at the moment.
Okay, well, thank you. And Davia, you bring up a good point that there is not one right answer. There are like 12, depending on your comfort level, your level of technology. So I appreciate you sharing that. Maybe someone else that might work better for them.
This debate again, quick question. For the induction cooktop, what what would somebody do?
Okay, I love induction. But they don't give those stoves away, that's for sure. And so for people that don't know what an induction burner is you can buy them with one burner. That's what I used in culinary school because there were like 18 flames. You know, it was a gas stove with like 18, and my ability to find my pan with everybody moving in and out in front of the stove was not good. So they had several induction burners, but that's what I used primarily. And what they are is they come in different sizes, but mine was about 16 inches by 16 inches square, and it's flat on top. It had a control panel in the front, but what it does is it works by engaging magnets. So not all pans will work on an induction burner. But the beauty of the induction burner is that the only part of that 16 by 16, let's say I have a 4-inch saucepan that I'm using, and but I have 16 inches of real estate there. Wherever I put that pan, that's the only part of that burner that will get hot of the whole plate. So it has to be the right kind of steel to engage the magnets. So there is a little bit of radiant heat around where that is. You know that the pan's hot, so it's going to put out a little bit. But I can
Oh,
put my fingers anywhere else on that thing and
so
not
you don't have to find, there's not a burner per se. It's just wherever
exactly.
the pan goes. Ah,
Yeah, and they get hot pretty quickly. They get hot. But I'm a big fan of those. But to get them, the another negative about them though is if I've got that 16 by 16, I've got that 4-inch saucepan and I want another saucepan for something else. It can only use one pan at a time or it'll turn it off. It can only handle one. So
okay.
having only one burner can be, you can do it, but it also can be problematic for some people because that now you're taking up a lot of space. Are
Does
there any
anyone
other
have
questions?
other questions?
Things people are struggling with or that you want to share with other people?
A question. Hi, this is Russ. Any recommendations for I'm interested in taking a cooking class, but being visually impaired. Any kind of questions I could ask the I guess the administration or whatnot in
Yes,
terms
yes,
of
good question. So unless it's a private school, any school that receives government funding, and I went to McClaskey Culinary Institute on the campus of Clark College in Vancouver. It is a state college, so that they had to accept me. Um, I went to Disabled Student Services, and they helped me out a lot. And Russ, I could talk with you about it, but your first step would be go to Disabled Student Services, and they will contact the chefs instructors and give them a heads up that they're going to have a blind student if you qualify. I Write to me, Russ, at info@theblindkitchen.com, and we can exchange phone numbers, and I would be happy to talk to you because I was kind of a groundbreaker in terms of going to culinary school. I didn't know any blind culinary school graduates, and so I learned a lot, and that's part of what the Blind Kitchen is how I learned. So I would be happy to have a chat with you about what's important. And another question that often gets asked is how do you access and read recipes if you have vision loss? And that was a huge problem for me because there are about 12 good ways to do that. You can ask your smart speaker. It doesn't work all the time, but it's a pretty good option. You can use your iPhone. You can, I mean, there use large print or magnifiers or voiceover. There's a lot of different ways to be able to do it. But when you're in a commercial kitchen, you can't have an iPhone. if you have an iPhone in the kitchen, you have to put silicone or like put it in a baggie or put cellophane over it because it's gross. It's near your mouth, your nose, your ears, your hair, the whole thing. And with VoiceOver, it keeps capturing the cursor and sending it in weird places, so the virtual cursor. So that can't go. You can't have an iPhone in a commercial kitchen or a laptop because of health foods. And most of us really don't want to have our phones in our kitchen when we're doing it. So they're the ones that came up with using the Victor Reader Stream, which is a small machine that is made for blind people. And they had to tell me what the recipes were, what recipe was going to be cooked the next day. And then I could prepare a Word document, drop it onto the hard drive of this little tool with very tactile buttons, and then zip it in a Ziploc bag. And I was able to control it and able to do the recipes like the rest of the students because otherwise I was in trouble. I didn't have any way of, and I'm not good at memorizing recipes. So feel free to write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com and I can help you brainstorm. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I also added Debra's email to the chat if any has any questions. And I'll also added the link to the wet measure spoons. I think Laura had a question about them, so you can go look at them if you're curious.
This is Lauren with the foundation. I also will make sure to send some information over afterwards with Debra's email. I'll send some information over with a link to her website, to the shop, everything like that as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And while we're talking about the website, it's worth going to because we have the tools are our bread and butter. That's how we keep the business going is with tool purchases. But the heart of the Blind Kitchen is in the library, and it's very organized into cleaning with vision loss, and specifically to the kitchen though, kitchen and pantry. That's where I keep that. Shopping with vision loss, dining out with vision loss, entertaining in your home, labeling. How do you label ingredients? And I talked about the rubber bands. That's just one of many, many ways. How to identify things in closed containers. How do you know if you're in your freezer which one's the ground beef and which one's the ground chicken? You're not going to get any smell from a frozen lump. You're not going to get any tactile information. They're going to feel exactly alike, but there are ways out there depending on your level of comfort with technology, depending, frankly, on your budget, because some of them can be very expensive, and then some as inexpensive as the rubber bands. Or bump dots is another one I use a lot in my kitchen. So yeah, so if you go to the website, sometimes it's not a tool, it's just a strategy.
Debra,
Mm-hmm.
this is Davida. On the tops that measure out the 1 tablespoon, do you buy them and put them on, like, for instance, do you put it on the olive oil and just that becomes the new top, or do you just use it, take it off, wash it, and put the other top back on?
So it's not going to fit on if it fits on a bottle, great, that you own, but bottles have different size openings and this will only fit the most common thing is a wine bottle. So if you're listening tonight, we're going to be putting on you could just have the auto measure spout, or you could buy a combo that will be a half wine bottle, which is dark because light and heat are the enemy of oil. So you want to keep your oils always in a dark bottle and in a cool place. And so we'll send that and along with a funnel. So you can, if the bottle of vinegar that you're using is not lend itself to these spouts, then you can just put a funnel in the half wine bottle, dump the stuff in, and then put the lid on whatever's, and put it away in your cupboard, whatever remains. And when I use a half a wine bottle and I cook a lot. So when I run out of oil, either one of those, that's the time when I'm going to take the the auto measure spout off and wash it in the sink so it doesn't get rancid because that it's got oil in it. And I also wash the bottle before I refill it again so that it's not going to the old liquid isn't going to contaminate the new liquid in the
How
bottle.
do you, okay, so you say half wine bottle. What does that mean? Are you just using a wine bottle and filling it up halfway?
No, good question. So actually sell, so a bottle of wine is, give me a second, 750 milliliters. That's how much a
Mhm.
typical one is, about 4 to 5 glasses of wine, depending on if you're a lush like me. But that's the they sell them in 375 milliliter bottles. In fact, Amtrak is the first place I discovered that. I was on an Amtrak train, and that's how they sold their wine. They didn't want to sell a whole bottle to a customer.
So you can buy them?
You can, and you can get them at the Blind Kitchen. Yeah,
And then when you say you wash them out, you can't literally, if there was oil in it, you can't, you can rinse it, but you can't literally clean it. So how does that work? Because you
well,
can't get in there.
if you have a soap like Dawn, it cuts grease and
Hmm.
oils. So you can just put a couple of drops in your bottle, add hot water and shake it up. And you'll notice on the inside and the outside, it can definitely cut grease. You just have to use a detergent that can do
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay. But my question, my original question was, so you okay, so I guess you answered it. You put the oil in the half wine bottle and plunk the top on, and the top stays on until you have to refill the bottle.
Exactly right. Yep.
Okay, got it.
And by the way, we don't have the wine bottles on the website yet, the set with the funnel. But if anybody's in this room tonight and you order an auto measure spout, mention in the customer notes that Deborah, you promised you'd send us a wine bottle and a funnel, and I'd be happy to do that because not
Deborah,
everybody drinks wine. Yeah.
yeah, Deborah, this is Laura again. Could you tell us a little bit about grocery shopping? I find it is just so difficult because I, same thing. I have to either get 3 inches away from a label.
Oh
Some
yeah.
shelves are too high up that I'm short. I can't see. So I have just, passed off that chore to my husband. However, he then has to call me 4 or 5 times in a shopping visit of should I get this size, should I get that size? You know,
I know the
Laura, what's the
feeling.
price of this? What's the price of that? So, I mean, I really would like to be grocery shopping again, but I just find I don't know how to do it anymore.
So there's a couple answers here. One is you can use an online shopping service instead of sending your husband. And if you use VoiceOver or TalkBack, the company I found that is the most helpful, and they will also, like your husband, call you in real time. It's called Instacart. So there's a fee that goes with it, but you can communicate via phone, and it's not meant for blind people, but it works well with our screen readers and our voiceover or talkback. And they will say they don't have this. Would you like me to get this instead? And then they deliver it to your door. So if there's an added cost, of course, but there's a couple of other things you can do. If you're familiar with Be My Eyes or Ira, that's another that those are if anybody has any questions, but briefly, they're visual interpretation systems. One of them is free, and you really never know what you're going to get. I love it that it's volunteers run, but sometimes you may call and they may not know how to cook and they may not tell you. So I love them and I highly recommend them. And the other is Ira, which is a paid one, and they actually are sitting by their computer so they can look up if they don't know a culinary term or I'm not explaining it well. But you can actually have your phone at the grocery store too to say, okay, I know I'm standing in front of the soups. Which one's the vegetable? And they'll tell you which way to turn your camera and stuff. That's both the volunteers and the paid one with Ira.
And see my Seeing AI is a free app and you just open it up and hold it again, towards something, and it will read, signs, cans, museum signs, and you don't need anybody to be helping you. I just keep earbuds so that if it's reading it out loud, I'm in public, but I'm the only person who hears it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the other thing they have out right now are the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses.
Yep, I got
They
them too.
are amazing. They don't do everything. In fact, they can't do as much as your phone can do. So I would encourage anyone listening. So they don't give those away either, but they're not $3,000
They're
like the
they're
former ones
two
were.
250 to 390, and you can get them any place you get glasses, Lens Crafters, Sunglass Hut,
Yeah.
etc.
So those are a game changer. And I'm not here really to talk about technology, but if you would like to write to me, I'd encourage you. There are a lot of websites. If you put in blind meta glasses, there's a lot of people that can tell you what they do and how they do it. There's a lot of accessible technology gurus out there that are doing podcasts. I love it.
I can help make those connections if when Lauren sends the information, if you want, and I can connect everybody to something called iBug Today, and that's a very helpful resource in terms of all the technology also.
Oh, nice. Include me on that so I can check that out.
Okay.
Lauren,
Who's
hello.
that?
My name's Lauren. I have a question for you very quickly. So I use Instacarter and my shopper's always sending me pictures of empty shelves. How do I get them to not do that anymore? Instead use the phone.
Sending you pictures of empty shelves?
Yeah.
Well, that's not very helpful.
To
I
show when
found
I
things are in stock.
Well, tell
don't
them
know
you
how to get them
can't
to stop
see.
sending me the pictures. Like
Tell,
instead of
tell them, just tell them you can't see. Don't
yeah,
send me a picture.
doesn't
tell
always
them
work that way.
I know.
it kind of depends on who you get, but I find that most people when I don't play the blind card very often. In fact, I try not to, not in an ashamed way, but it feels like I just want to have as normal of an experience. But there are times when I can tell they're not getting it, and I'll say, and never say you're sorry. You can't see. You never apologize for not being able to see. Just say, hey, I have very low vision and I'm unable to see the photos you're sending me. Could you please describe them for me?
Okay.
That's the way I'd handle it. And if they're not doing it right, their tips should reflect that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Just a comment on the grocery store shopping. A tip that my O&M training teacher told me was, according to her, every grocery store is legally obligated to help people with visual impairments. So you can go to the customer service desk and say, "I'm visually impaired. Can someone walk around with me to go food shopping?" And I did that once, and it was great. So,
That unfortunately has changed. I just was on an ACB meeting and they were discussing that. The stores don't always have the staff to do that.
okay, good to know.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, your
no,
instructor was exactly right, but COVID kind of did away with that.
yeah.
Good to know. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And the Instacart, I believe you can, if you get a yearly membership, it can cut down on, I don't know if it's the delivery or something, but there is an advantage if you know you're going to use it a lot, and you pay an annual membership, it can save you some money.
Yeah. It's a good organization. That's the best I found in terms of accessibility.
We are at about 8:15. If there aren't any more questions, Deborah, did you have anything else further that you wanted to touch on?
There's
Sarah?
there's one more question. I think Sarah, go ahead.
Okay.
In terms of ground beef, like cooking ground beef on the stove and knowing when it's cooked, I can't see at all whether it's pink or brown or burnt.
You know, that's a good question. So there's also a video on the website that goes into that into detail, but I'll tell you. So the talking thermometer isn't going to help you with little meat
Oh, good
things.
point.
So you're going to have to so the way to know if it's cooked or not is you cook it if you have to add fat to it, if it's poultry, chicken or turkey, ground turkey with ground beef, that usually has enough fat to cook itself. You want to first of all make sure to break up the pieces evenly, and I do that with my fingers when it's cold. I start out with my fingers that way, and then you cook it over low heat, medium heat to low. You just want to hear a sizzle. And different meats cook, it depends on the size pan you're using, how much meat is in the pan. So I can't give you an exact thing, but I can take the worry off of your shoulders is that even if it's ground turkey or ground chicken, ground beef, you have far less of a worry because people eat medium rare steaks, but you're never going to get a medium rare piece of chicken. It's just not a thing for reasons.
Yeah.
So if you think it's done but you're not sure, I would not panic. First of all, I never turn the heat up any higher than a low sizzle. That's all you need. And if it happens to not be done, I have never served or been served a bowl of turkey crumbles. Almost every recipe you're going to go on to cook it further, whether it's for chili or taco or spaghettis. So even if you underguess it a little bit, chances are it's going to cook in that sauce, that mixture, and cook it even further. So I understand why you don't want to make people sick and stuff like that, but for browning ground meats, it's less of a worry than other ways of preparing them of those same foods.
Okay. And then do you have a video on your website you had mentioned about how to find the spot of the meat to put the thermometer in? Like, how do you know you're in the right spot without touching it all? You have a video for that too?
I
didn't know.
I'll tell you. So I don't think we do. Edgar, we should probably make one of those. He's my videographer. So
we have one when you use the chicken drumsticks. Remember?
Oh, that's easy. But like if you're doing like that seems more, you know where to put the thermometer, but like if you're doing like a chicken breast or I don't know, a whole
no.
chicken
It's
or
a good
anything else.
question. Or what if you're doing an 18-pound turkey?
Yeah.
How are you
like
going
a
to
whole
know?
chicken turkey, yeah.
So what I do is that's where that handy cut glove comes in. It is not meant to protect me against heat, but it's better than my skin. So when I pull that turkey out of the oven and put it on top, or roast chicken or whatever, I can now touch it to find out where the breast is or where the leg is, and I can it's not perfect, but I can make a much more educated guess as to where that probe should be. Another place I use those cut gloves as heat resistant gloves sort of is in the air fryer. You know how baskets in the air fryer are deep and it's really easy to knock your knuckles up against the side when you go in to flip the food. So you put those on. And again, even if you accidentally touch it, you're not expecting to, you'll just pull it away and your skin won't be burnt. But those aren't meant to protect you from heat, but they do to a certain extent as long as you're ready to pull it back whenever you start to feel a little bit of heat. But that's a good tool for that purpose, those purposes as well.
Okay.
And for your convenience, I just put the link as well on the chat, so if you can just go there directly if that helps.
Excellent.
We have a talking thermometer. It doesn't address your question specifically, but in general gives you an idea what's the technique to use it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have another question, Laura?
Yes, sorry, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Something else that I've just started using in the last few years is sous vide for cooking meat, where I can put a chicken breast, a turkey tenderloin, a steak in a nylon bag. It goes in the water, and I say I want this to be medium rare, and it is, I can feel how thick it is. It's 2 inches thick. And and you have flexibility that it will only cook to that temperature that you want. I mean, afterwards with the meat, if it's not poultry, it's nice to sort of sear it in a frying pan, just to get a good color on it. But it has been a real game changer for me with low vision.
So for people that don't know what sous vide is, it means under vacuum. And what it does is you put the food that you want to cook. It could be a steak, it could be chicken, it could be eggs, whatever you want to cook. And let's say you want a medium rare steak, so you want it to be 135 degrees. Each steak will be in its own vacuum sealed bag, and the water bath is monitored at 135 degrees, so you can never overcook that steak. It's not going to get wet because it's in a vacuum sealed bag, and you can season it before you put it in the bag. And so that's what they use at big steakhouses. That's how they get their steaks right all the time. They pull it, if somebody wants medium rare, they pull it out at like 128, that where it's been cooking, it's been sitting in there for 6 hours, maybe since the afternoon shift. It's safe. It's in a cooking thing. It's not exposed to the air. And then they just throw it over a flame for a minute on one side, a minute on the other side, and then they serve it to the customer. So sous vide is very blind friendly. There's no doubt about it. If you have a way to control it, and so you can have to buy a big unit, or there's sous vide wands that you can buy that go right into your pot or your pan, but that's your heating. That's where your heat comes from. And so my brother Dean also has RP, and he is a big time griller, and he'd never heard of sous vide. These are the best pork chops I ever made because he had been able to do his research, what temperature you want the water to be, but you have to allow a couple of hours for the water to get there and for the food to reach all the way to the middle, because all food cooks from the outside to the inside generally. The inside's going to be the last part to cook, which is why you put your toothpick in the center of your cake, because the outsides are going to be done a long time before the center is. So that's why till the toothpick comes out clean, it's because that's going to be the last part to cook.
Now, how big is this device that is obviously now your heat item, and do you just put it on your counter? Or, where does it take a lot of storage space?
Yeah, they can take up a lot of counter space if you buy the whole unit that has the vacuum bags, it has the water bath, it has racks for the different foods to be set inside the water bath. Or you can just get a wand, and that's more the size of like an immersion blender that plugs in. Like it's like a tube, probably about usually they're I'd say about 12 inches tall, and the handle has a cord hanging from it, and you just leave it in. It has a flat bottom of the little wand, and you put it in there, and it produces the heat in the pan, and you can just have that on your countertop. So there's a lot of different ways to do the sous vide thing, and you can spend a little bit of money or you can spend a lot of money.
Okay.
I mean, the nice thing is I find, as Deborah was saying, it takes longer, so you have to prepare ahead of time. But if you are having company over and they're chatting, you're trying to get them to the table, it doesn't matter because you have this long window. It might be ready at 6 o'clock, but if your company is still chatting, 6:30, you are still serving a perfect piece of meat. I've even done it. I've taken just plastic bins when I've sort of slow cooked a turkey and I didn't have a pot big enough, because you're only heating the water up to the temperature of the cooked meat. One time in an apartment, I even had it going on the bathroom powder room counter because I had no kitchen space.
Don't tell your guests that.
Yeah, right. It was like,
I won't tell.
Ignore the turkey cooking in the bathroom there.
No, it's a very safe way to cook and a guaranteed way to know that your temperature is safe to eat.
Oh,
I think we have another question for Martha, I think. Martha, are you there? Okay. Or Sarah, I think you have another question? Nope.
No.
Okay. Okay, I think uh, I think no more questions.
Okay,
okay. All right.
so go ahead.
Well, it's 8:30, so I wanted to thank you for your time very much, Deborah, and see if you had any kind of closing remarks that you'd like to make to wrap things up this evening.
Yes, first of all, thank you for coming and thank you for all the really good questions and also a couple of tips of things that I need to learn more about. And I love that. So I want to encourage anyone, regardless of your level of vision, if you want to fry an egg or you want to like brown meat or do something like that, there is probably a way to do it. I cannot devein a shrimp. There's just not enough information for me tactily to be able to do that. So what I do is I buy shrimp that's already deveined with the peel on. So sometimes if you're working with if you talk with other people, they can give you ideas. So please feel free to peruse the Blind Kitchen website. Write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com. I love to talk with people and can even do different types of consultation with you. If you say, this is the challenge I'm having, and I may say I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Or chances are, because of presentations like this evening, I learned so much and it's now organized in a space. I have a place to share it on the website. So
And then Deborah, also, you have programs that you're doing on a standing basis through the American Council of the Blind, correct? Through
I
their
do, I
community.
do.
So people we Deborah and I can help if you're interested when you get our contact information. We can connect you to those email lists and you'll see what those programs are and you can jump in if you wanted.
Yeah, ACB has some really good discussion groups, and there's a Blind United interest groups have a similar thing. They're on a smaller scale, but they're newer. They're still trying to grow. The other thing I would encourage you to do, and this is absolutely free, is to go to the website and sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter is very popular. It's short, first of all. You're not going to get, pages and pages. We give you a tip of the month, a tool of the month, what we're excited about, a recipe, and the other thing that which is very blind friendly. I'm very proud of those recipes. They take a long time, but they're so worth it. And the other thing is we have a list with links to programs like this where you can register or where I will be speaking and like on ACB or Blind United that we only post the ones that outsiders are allowed to attend because a lot of agencies have support groups that deal with sensitive information and people sharing things, and it's not open to everyone. But for some like this tonight, which is more of a webinar or informative, we'll put those on the website, and then you'll be reminded. It comes out once a month, and it's very popular.
Right. And for anybody who wants to know where the foundation chapters are nationally, it's fightingblindness.org is the website. There are resources there also. Um, and because we're basically here to be of help and help connect people to information that is needed. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, everybody. And then also we would love to continue doing these virtual programs. So if you have any suggestions for future topics and you want to let Lauren know, that'd be great. We did one on Be My Eyes. We did one on seeing AI. And I've been talking with our education chair, and I anticipate that we're probably going to go ahead and do another program virtually, and it'll probably be in June or July. So if you have ideas and suggestions, please do share them with us.
Great. This is Lauren from the foundation. Once again, thank you so much for joining. We are really glad you could join us today. Thank you to Deborah for hosting this and letting everyone connect on cooking and with vision loss, which is fantastic. I learned a lot as well.